Hey everybody, welcome again to my new YouTube channel. My name is Chris Roop, and today I want to share with you a video clip from a presentation I gave not too long ago at the Midwest Creation Fellowship in Illinois on March 3rd, 2025. And the clip that I'm showing you is just a 13-minute segment of the much longer, hour-long lecture that you can watch in the description in my YouTube channel. Click the link and you can watch the full thing. But this clip is really important because it just gets right to the point about Lucy. For years, creationists have argued that Lucy is some type of an extinct ape, and I actually used to believe that. But over the years I've been studying this, I realize there's a very strong creationist group think that is very reluctant to considering any other possibility. And what I find is that Lucy's skeletal elements, in particular her hip and other features, really do closely resemble humans, just as evolutionists have claimed since the discovery. However, that's not because Lucy was a true missing link. It's simply because the reason why the hip looks so human is simply because Lucy was a human. And that's a really major realization for Bible-believing Christians and creationists, and actually everybody who's believed in evolution as well, because it shows true humans predating the origin of the genus Homo, which should be impossible from an evolutionary point of view. If you accept the dates for the sake of argument, that they really are, 3.2 million years old or older, how can you have true human bones, true human skeletons predating your own origin? That's like saying you can be born before your grandparents. That's absurd. So this finding falsifies the ape man story, and it shows the biblical model that we didn't come from Australopithecus ancestors. We didn't evolve from them. We've always been humans. And so I hope you enjoy this clip. Please like and subscribe to this YouTube channel to help me get the word out, and yeah, share it with other people. This is big news. We really can trust the Bible. Lucy is not a missing link. We didn't evolve from apes. God created Adam and Eve on the same day as the great apes. We've always coexisted. Some types have gone extinct, and they're found today as fossils. It's that simple. So I hope you enjoy. Thanks so much. God bless.
So creationists for years have been saying that Lucy's hip looks just like a chimpanzee. What do you guys think? Here's a chimpanzee hip, very elongated, narrow sacrum. Homo sapiens, very different kind of sacrum. We'll look at that in a moment. But also the pelvis of Native Americans, for example, short, broad, and bowl-shaped. Neanderthals, which all creationists would agree is Homo sapiens, same thing with Homo erectus, would say it's Homo sapiens. Very distinctive, human-shaped pelvises. Lucy unmistakably looks most like humans and very different than chimpanzee. Would we all agree? Absolutely. For years, I baffled over this. How can creationists claim Lucy's hip looks more like a chimpanzee? What are they looking at? And I've recognized over the years of studying this, there's a very strong group think in creationist circles, such that they just follow what other people told them without thinking about the evidence. And so I want to just change that and say, let's be more open-minded to the possibility that Lucy's hip looks human because she was a human. And you might say, well, Chris, what about the reconstruction? How can you trust Lucy's hip reconstruction? And I've watched videos like this from years ago from awesome creation scientists that I respect. And they would show this clip. We can't show it today because my video wouldn't work. But in this video, it's anatomist Owen Lovejoy, an evolutionist. And it's being narrated by Donald Johanson, the discoverer of Lucy. Owen Lovejoy reconstructed the hip. And in this video, there's a certain part of Lucy's fossil that is bent. I don't know if you can see it from here. I'll show you after. I'll hand it out. This is called the sacroiliac joint, and it actually fits with the sacrum. Now this part is clearly bent. Owen Lovejoy corrected that part. He got a buzzsaw out. And creationists have shown this, and I actually admit, I used to believe this was true. And so I thought that, what's wrong with showing this clip? Well, the creationist claim has been that this part was fraudulently reconstructed to make the hip look more like a human and a lot less like a chimpanzee. I was taught that, I believed that, but then I bought the fossils myself before his reconstruction. There is no doubt about it. That part of the hip absolutely needed to be fixed. And what he fixed did not affect the overall shape of the ilium. It did not affect the sacrum, for example, was found intact. It didn't affect that at all. This was found well preserved, incredibly well preserved. So there is simply no way that Johanson, there's no way he could have fabricated this to make it look more like a chimpanzee. So here's the damage to the fossil. You can see right here. It's bent. He simply corrected it by making it more anatomically reasonable. It didn't change the overall shape of it though. But here's what happened though. If you don't fix that part, this is the sit bone. The sit bone is supposed to be facing down like this, okay? But the sit bone, because of the fossil damage, makes it go like this. It rotates it upward. That's an anatomical monstrosity. You can't have a hip like that. You can't have one hip like this and the other one down on the other side, mirror image down. That's absurd. He had to fix that. Now, and if you don't fix it, there's a small gap there. But it didn't change the overall fit of the pieces of the ilium, of the innominate, which is this part. There were clear joins between the pieces, and again, the sacrum was found intact. So I actually agree with the reconstruction. In fact, multiple reconstructions have been done, including independent of Lovejoy's. And these all agree with each other. The differences are very subtle. They have to do with the birth canal dimensions. The sacrum was corrected digitally to make it more symmetrical. Again, but it's still human. And this person I emailed not long ago. And they wrote me back. The person who reconstructed this one digitally said that it's very similar to Martin Hausler's, which is this one. They actually look similar to all of them. But he's being very technical as the reconstructor. He says, I did it blind of that reconstruction. He did it from its individual pieces, from scratch digitally, and ended up looking just like it. So the overall shape of the hip, regardless of the reconstruction, is short, broad, and bowl-shaped with a heart-shaped sacrum, unmistakably human. Here's another diagnostic feature that only humans have in their hip. This is called the anterior-inferior iliac spine, and it's preserved well on Lucy's innominate in a part that was not damaged in any way. That bony protrusion right there is very important in humans and doesn't occur in any primates. The equivalent part in primates is flat. And the rectus femoris, a quadricep muscle, attaches to that point right there. It's an anchor point and allows us to go like this. It's the kicking muscle. So humans can walk upstairs, can walk and move our legs forward. That is a diagnostic human trait. That alone demonstrates this is a human hip bone. Now evolutionists, though, they have no problem with that because that fits again with their narrative that Lucy's kind could walk upright like us. And so they're happy to entertain that idea that, yes, this is a human feature, but we believe they were evolving into us. So that's how they interpret it. But look at this. Here's the chimp pelvis, very long, narrow sacrum. Another example, very long and narrow of chimp. Here's humans, very distinct. What does Lucy's most closely resemble? Human or chimp? Absolutely. And if you actually scale it larger and correct the distortion, it fits right in with Homo sapiens. I'm trying to argue that Lucy could walk upright like us and had distinctive human anatomies because Lucy was a human. When I had that epiphany, and by the way, I deleted something right here. This arrow is pointing to Lucy's sacrum. This arrow is pointing to the half hip bone, not of Lucy, but of a pygmy human. When I was praying about this several years ago, I was saying, Lord, why do creationists believe this is a chimp-like hip? I don't get it. It looks human to me. And I was wrestling with that. And as I was praying literally on the screen, Google Images, I was staring at something. I was puzzled. I was like, why is it, that picture doesn't look right. I recognize Lucy's sacrum, but that's definitely not Lucy's half hip bone. And I realized that was the hobbit's. What's the hobbit? The hobbit is a small-bodied human that was found on the Indonesian island of Flores. And evolutionists call it a new species of human, Homo floresiensis. Creationists, on the other hand, would say it's human, but it's a small-bodied human called a pygmy. And actually, even the lead member of the discovery team made the same conclusion. He said it's actually a Homo sapien. It's a human. It's a diseased modern human. and he actually went to a pygmy population that still lives in Flores, an Indonesian island. They still live there. And so even evolutionists would argue that hip belongs to a small-bodied human, a pygmy human, with very short stature. And it clicked for me. And so here's the reaction of evolutionists when they fit together the sacrum of Lucy, which is an adult as well. You can tell from the bones it's an adult. Dr. William Jungers from Stony Brook, he's a paleoanthropologist. He tries fitting a hobbit hip bone, the ilium right here, to a cast of Lucy's tailbone, the sacrum, they mean. To his surprise, they were a perfect fit. Lucy, the 3.2 million-year-old specimen, actually it's not the type specimen, ignore that though, it's LH4. For Australopithecus afarensis from Ethiopia was an early biped that stood just over a meter tall. The close match with a 17,000-year-old fossil in Indonesia, this one is astounding. Well, it's not astounding if both of them are small-bodied adult humans, both being pygmies. And guess what? There is still pygmies that live in Central Africa today, in the region of the Congo. So pygmies live today in both Central Africa and on the Indonesian island of Flores. No wonder they fit together. They're both humans. They're just small-bodied humans. So what I'm suggesting is that in East Africa, sometime after the flood, because we can tell based on where they're found in the sedimentary record, these are post-flood, sometime after the flood, probably after the Babel dispersion, there was a pygmy population that lived in East Africa. Makes sense, right? Well, there's more evidence that supports that idea. I'm calling this the pygmy human hypothesis. This is a knee joint that was found at a separate site in Hadar, found by Donald Johanson a year before he found Lucy. And this knee joint looks unmistakably human. Even though Johanson couldn't help but notice, he said man-like knees are made for man-like walking. And this knee joint has all the anatomical features that are characteristic of human knee joints. And that includes, and I'll briefly mention this, if you look at, for example, modern humans, if you were to imagine turning the upper femur here, right, the distal end of the femur, right there. My battery's dying. Imagine turning the knee joint like this, so you can look at the underside of it. If you look at those condyles, you'll be able to see that there's a raised patellar lip. See that? And also a deep patellar groove. That is a distinctive human trait that prevents us from dislocating our knee because of the bicondylar angle. It kind of keeps it in place. And humans also have the high bicondylar angle and the elongated and flattened condyles at the base. See that? AL129, attributed to Lucy's kind, has those same features. Unmistakably human and very different from apes, which have a flat patellar surface. They don't have this deep groove or a raised lateral lip, and has a low bicondylar angle and rounded condyles. So this knee joint is more evidence that there was a small-bodied population that lived in East Africa. Because guess what? This knee joint is an adult, but it's very small. So we have another individual that lived near Lucy, and that's amazing. So a pygmy population once lived in Hadar, Ethiopia? I would say so. Amazing. Yet there's also larger distal femur bones, for example, that have those characteristic features of humans that were found at the family site that Johanson originally called Homo, and that's larger. So we see ordinary-sized humans living alongside smaller-bodied humans, pretty much like today. Fairly ordinary. Let me just show you all these. We're almost done. Let me just show you all these similarities between LB1, that's the fossil numbering system for Hobbit. So Hobbit's the pygmy human from Flores, compared to Lucy on the right. Here's some of the very interesting similarities. First of all, pygmies still live in both places, generally. Nearly identical height. They're estimated to be approximately 3 feet 6 inches tall for both of them. Nearly identical body proportions. The proportions are actually based on something called the humerofemoral index. That's measuring the length of the humerus of the arm relative to the large leg bone, the femur. And those, it's called a humerofemoral index. They're almost identical. Nearly identical cranial capacity. Both had small skulls, small brains. They're small people, so that's part of it, but also just smaller than normal. Flat-footed. Nevertheless, the overall foot anatomy is human. Lucy preserves 2 toe bones, which are not diagnostic, but it does preserve a talus, and the talus looks morphologically human. The talus is where the tibia and fibula articulate to, so that looks very human. And you can tell though from the fingers and toes they're curved. But guess what? Even athletes can have curved fingers, for example, so that's not a diagnostic trait. So creationists should not get too worked up about curved fingers or curved toes. The overall anatomy of the foot is still human. Broad pelvises with laterally flaring ilia. So what I mean by laterally flaring is in both Hobbit and humans, and also in Native American pelvises, I just showed you some pictures, the ilia can actually flare out a little bit more, but those are in common. Interesting. So these are distinctive features in common to pygmy types.